In this video, I'm going to talk about the best stocks you can buy as a beginner going into 2018. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. Today we're talking about the best stocks that you can buy as a beginner going into 2018 and beyond. The reason I chose to do this video is because the channel is really starting to grow and I'm getting a lot of people that are DMing me on Instagram and also reaching out to me on YouTube asking, hey Marco, what are the best stocks that you can buy as a beginner, or how do I get started investing in the stock market? So why did I choose these stocks? The reason I chose these 5 stocks is because they're all blue chip stocks with a strong dividend. So blue chip essentially means that it's a large, well-established company that's financially sound and that it's been operating for many years. So these aren't going to be some fly-by-night IPOs, initial public offerings. These are going to be well-established, long-lasting companies that have a consistent track record of quality. And why the dividend factor? So overall, stocks that pay out a dividend or have enough money on their balance sheets to give out and pay out a dividend, they perform better, whether it's through better economic times or worse economic times, versus their counterparts that don't actually pay out a dividend, that are mostly focused on growth. So there's nothing wrong with growth stocks. I actually invest in a lot of growth stocks, but for beginners, I want to make sure that these stocks are going to be consistent and not that volatile, and that they pay you a nice dividend. Which brings me to my third point, volatility. Again, these are companies that are going to be slow and steady, that win the race. They're not going to be companies that grow 100% a year where you're doubling your money like crazy, but they can also go down 50, 60% a year as well. The volatility is low in these 5 stocks that I chose. So without further ado, let's get into the first stock. Number 1 is Apple. Whether you're a fan of Apple products or not, you have to admit that this stock has been a winner over the past few years. It's a must-own stock in my opinion, especially in a well-diversified portfolio. Apple is going to be a great technology and growth company stock to have in your portfolio, and I see myself owning this for the long term. The reason I like Apple is because lately they've been obsessed with returning cash to their investors. They've done this through stock and share buybacks and also through dividend increases. If you take a look at the numbers, their 1-year returns have been about 49.6%, just right under 50%, and the 5-year returns have been 131%. This means that for every dollar you invested in Apple over the past 5 years, you're getting back $1.31 in profit, which is pretty crazy, especially for an established company like Apple. Their PE ratio is actually pretty low, especially for a tech stock. It's 19.05, and for those of you that don't know what a PE ratio means, this is essentially the price to earnings ratio on a stock. That's the price of the stock divided by their earnings. All in all, I think Apple is going to be a great pick for the long term, and again, it's going to be a staple in my portfolio for 2018 and beyond. Number 2, Visa. Visa is almost the definition of a blue chip stock. It's one of the 15 most valuable companies in the world, and it has a huge market share, and it is highly profitable with high barrier to entry. And just a quick tip, when you hear high barrier to entry and in the investing world, we like to call this the moat. So when you think of a castle, think of the water around it. That's called the moat. That makes it difficult for invaders or competition to actually take over that stock and eat up that company's market share. So keep that in mind. Visa has a huge moat in the credit lending industry. Their global market share with about 323 million active accounts actually dominates their next nearest competitor, which is MasterCard, who only has about 191 million active accounts. Their dividend yield is not the strongest, but it's always been increased year over year for the most part. Right now it sits at about 0.69%. But again, it has been increasing year over year. And I think Visa, especially with this new tax bill, is going to make it a priority to raise that dividend yield. Their 1-year return has been about 43.5%, and their 5-year return has been 190%, which has been insane. So again, over the past 5 years, for every dollar that you put into Visa, you're getting back $1.90 in profit, which is excellent. They're a great stock with a steady growth track, and they've been doing it for years, and I think that Visa is going to be sitting in my portfolio for at least the next 2 years, if not longer. This is a great stock for beginners in 2018 and beyond. Number 3, Texas Instruments. So if you remember in high school when you guys used to play Snake on those TI-83 calculators, that is a Texas Instrument product, but they do so much more than that. They've been around since 1930, and it is currently a $100 billion company today. They're still growing at a healthy rate, which is pretty crazy, given that they've been around for about 87 to 90 years. Their revenue is expected to increase almost 12% in 2018, which is huge for a company that's this old. They're a leading supplier in rapidly transforming automotive and industrial sectors, and they've raised their dividend consecutively for 13 years. That's awesome. That means that they're managing their money effectively because they're able to raise that dividend consistently over a long period of time. They've also focused on buying back some of their outstanding shares, kind of like Apple was doing, as I mentioned earlier. So this decreases dilution. That means that the company doesn't have as many outstanding shares. So for example, in 2004, there were about 1.7 billion outstanding shares of Texas Instruments, and in 2017, that number was brought down to about 1 billion. That's pretty solid. Their dividend yield is a very healthy 2.38%. Their one-year returns have been about 41%, and the 5-year returns have been 218%. You've been doubling your money over the past 5 years with Texas Instruments, which is pretty insane. There's few other stocks that offer this kind of a fat dividend with such an opportunity for growth, so that's why Texas Instruments is number 3 on this list. Number 4, Johnson & Johnson. So when you think of Johnson & Johnson, you're probably thinking of the baby shampoo. At least that's what I think of when I hear Johnson & Johnson. But you have to realize that Johnson & Johnson is arguably one of the most diversified and consistent stocks available today. They've raised dividends 54 years in a row. Let me repeat that. They've consistently raised dividends 54 years in a row. This makes it a long-term pillar in any portfolio, if you ask me. Johnson & Johnson has sustainable growth through diversification, excellent management, and mergers and acquisitions of competitors. So let's take a look at their dividend yield. Their dividend yield is also right in that 2.38, 2.4 neighborhood, as well as Texas Instruments was. And then you have 1 year of 21.8% returns and a 5-year of almost 100% returns. Again, you're doubling your money, which is insane for such a strong company like this. Johnson & Johnson is definitely a staple in my portfolio. They're not going to be a sexy stock. It's going to be a very boring, stagnant stock. But even with a fat dividend yield and growth that we've seen over the past 5 years, you best believe that I'm going to be a big advocate of Johnson & Johnson for the long term. Number 5, Microsoft. So I personally work for one of the biggest Microsoft partners in the Midwest of the United States, if not the biggest partner of Microsoft. But that is not swaying or making my decision biased whatsoever. I took a hard look at Microsoft, and they have a lot of service areas that have huge margins. So a lot of their biggest service areas are cloud, ERP software, that stands for Enterprise Resource Planning software. So think of software that runs big business, so manufacturing firms, chemical laboratories, food manufacturers, things like that. And also Office 365. Office 365 is a big part of their business, and that's actually one of the products that I sell personally. They're incentivizing their salespeople to sell cloud. So I know this because I was on one of their sales calls as a salesperson, and Microsoft is making a direct push to compensate their reps to sell more Dynamics 365 and cloud-based solutions. And also, the reason I picked this stock for 2018 for beginners is because they're consistently raising dividends. So they're not focused 100% on growth, even though it has been in the growth sector. Their dividends are nice and fat, and they've consistently been raising them. So their dividend yield is 1.95%. Their 1-year returns have been 35.2%, and their 5-year returns have been 224%, which has been insane. So Microsoft, in my opinion, is a long-term hold. A lot of people got in right around $50, $60 a share. Right now it's sitting in the mid-80s. I think that for 2018, Microsoft may see triple digits in their stock price. That's just my personal opinion. So it's definitely going to be in my portfolio for 2018, and as a beginner, I would recommend Microsoft as well. These are the best beginner stocks for 2018, but you also need to do your own due diligence and take a deeper dive in all 5 of these stocks that I mentioned. Investing is a long game. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. I know a lot of people that are investing over the past, 7 or 8 years. they think that, you know, whatever they buy is going to go up because we've been in such a crazy market. You really need to dig a little bit deeper and look at fundamentals and the financials of these companies. I have dug deeper into these 5 stocks, and that's why I do recommend them. But again, you need to do your own due diligence. The market is like a roller coaster. You only get killed if you get off halfway. So think of this as a long game. Even if your stocks do go down, don't jump off the ride. You need to keep investing consistently, because then you're dollar cost averaging. You're buying at highs, you're buying at lows, and you'll end up somewhere in the middle, but overall for the better in the long term. Thank you so much for watching. If you got any value out of this video whatsoever, please hit the subscribe button below and share these videos with your friends and your family if you think they're valuable. I do have a question of the day. Out of these 5 stocks, which are you investing in? I'd be happy to hear your opinions below. Thank you so much and have a prosperous day. Okay, bro, this is what I'm gonna do. I heard about this investing thing. I'm gonna buy 1 Bitcoin. Right now, it's at like $10,000. Tomorrow, it's gonna be like 23. And with the difference, with that 13 difference, I'm gonna buy like, I'm gonna go on margin. I'm gonna have my margin account, and then I'm gonna buy like 3 Lambos. 3 Lambos, all red. I'm parking in my garage full of knowledge. Knowledge.